So here's the thing, right? How you're going to know when you're enlightened is when you give up the idea that you're not. Because if it's already true, it must also be true that you're already experiencing it, right? The thing that happens is the mental state steps in and says, well, wait a minute. See, this is the personality. This is the person steps in and says, I am meditating, and at some point I'm going to have this experience. That's what a lot of people who practice meditation are doing. You know, I'm meditating, and at some point I'm going to have this experience. I'm going to have the experience that Eckhart Tolle had, or some other person had. The lights are going to go on. I'm going to have bliss. I'm going to see God. I'm going to be free. You know, and it's going to be this experience. And you know, and if you listen to a lot of the teachers, you may think, well, what they say happened to them might be what I should aspire to have happen to me. The only thing is, and I try and say this as clearly and as often as possible, is that what happened to them that they talked about as being an awakening was not enlightenment. That's not awakening. That's a temporary experience. You can have it with drugs. You don't have to meditate. You can just have it with drugs. You know, you can experience bliss. You want to experience bliss? You know, get some good drugs, right? So it's, but what'll happen is it'll be the same as what people talk about when they say they have these enlightenment experiences, in the sense that it will come and it will go. See, and then if it comes and goes, when it goes, then what? What are you going to say? I lost it. I have to go back and start meditating harder to get it back, right? The whole thing is a fallacy. The whole thing is a ruse. The whole thing is a mental trip that people go on. And people can be on this their entire lives, right? They can go to retreats. They can become a spiritual person. They become a seeker. They can have huge collections of books, and they're on their bookshelves. You know, they can have a guru, you know, the whole 9 yards. You know, there's so much available now. If you can afford it and you have time, you know, you can travel to India, you can. But see, what I'm here to tell you is that none of that's necessary. And the reality of it is, and this is the reason why we're practicing meditation. So if you sit there long enough, just being awake and being aware, which you are, that what will happen is the idea that you're not enlightened, the idea that enlightenment is other than what you're experiencing right now, will gradually dissipate. You'll surrender, you'll give in, you'll give up that this is it. You'll give up that this is it. And the reason people don't want to accept that this is it is, I don't want this. You know what I mean? I'm here because I want something better than this. I don't want this. I want to feel good. I don't want this. I want to be calm all the time. I want to be calm all the time. I never want to have negative reactions. I don't want to be angry at anybody. I don't want depression. I don't want anxiety. That's what I want. Well, as one of my teachers said, if that's what you really want, have all your primary organs taken out of your body and have them put in lukewarm water, so there's no discomfort, and just leave it like that. Because the reality of it is, if you're going to be in life, you have to be in life the way life is. And the way life is it's unpredictable, it's challenging. Anybody who thinks that a spiritual teacher doesn't get angry or doesn't get depressed or doesn't get anxious is naive. That's just naive. I say that, and yet at the same time that I'm saying that, I know that there are a lot of people that believe that that's true. And these people who are reeling in a lot of money aren't going to say it's not true. That'll blow the whole game, right? That's why it's dangerous to get attached to the idea that if you're teaching, if you're a spiritual teacher, and if you're getting off on being a spiritual teacher, and if you're getting rich by being a spiritual teacher, the ability to deal with that effectively and not get attached to it and not, want to ride that, take that trip, that's a very difficult thing to deal with for most people. They really do see, it's tricky because you can fall into the trap of really believing that you are superior, that I am God. There are some spiritual teachers that take it that far, don't they? They say, I am the one. There is no one but me. I am the one. It's a tempting thing. And the irony of it is, and the paradox of it is, in a certain sense, you are God, but not just Jew, everybody. So you don't get to be better than anybody because that's the case. But there is this tricky thing, that on the one hand, we're all the same, and there's no hierarchy, there's no somebody above you like that. At the same time, even though that's the case, we have to acknowledge that there are differences. It is the case that some people are far enough along in terms of being who they really are, and far enough along in terms of understanding reality as it is, right? That they are not in the same place as other people are. So there is that difference, right? And that difference, because if you and I are in the same place and I'm in the role of a spiritual teacher or I'm in the role of a teacher and we're in the same place, why should you listen to me? There has to be some difference, right? It doesn't make me a different person. It doesn't make me a better person than you or anything like that, right? But there is a difference between where you're at and where you can be that happens in time. Because while it's the case that you already are who you are, it's a done deal. So this is a finished thing. It's already finished. It's already happened, right? Although that's the case, because you live in time and because you have a brain and a mind, right, that's still going to operate the same way as it always did. That's what we're trying to get to, to come together through sitting and meditation, right? We want the understanding we have of who we are to be the experience that we're having. That's what we want. And the thing about that is that you are having that experience. So in reality, all you're doing is letting go of the ideas about it that you have that are in the way. That's all. See, it's a paradox in a sense, right? Because although Rupert's saying that, right, at the same time, and this is the case that it's inevitable with any teaching or any teachers, at the same time he's saying that, he will conceptually talk about these things, and he will talk about self-inquiry is an investigation into your true nature, right? But you got to talk about this on one side of it, then you got to talk about it on the other side of it, then you talk about it on the other side of it, and both things are true, but the mind can't grasp a paradox. It's got to be one way or the other. At the same time, understanding what can be understood about the situation that we find ourselves in is also useful, right? So it's like in the Vedanta teachings, Advaita Vedanta teachings, these ancient Hindu teachings, they say that the first step is to develop a deep understanding of reality and what the truth is. That's the first step, and that takes time. You got to become a student of it. It takes time to grasp these things and comprehend these things, right? And then after that, they say, and after having done all that, you are not able to experience these things because of what they call vasanas. This is an interesting thing. They say you develop these teachings, you develop these understandings of these teachings, so you kind of have a map about it, right? Of course, the map is not the territory, but you have a map about it, but you want to have the experience of it, right? And so now that you understand these things, what you have to deal with in order to have the experience of these things are what they call the vasanas, or the sankharas. In another word that's used for it is sankharas. And what they're talking about when they say vasanas and sankharas is they're talking about the state of mind that we find ourselves in through our conditioning. So they could say you can have great insights into all these things, and those insights may be good for parties to talk about it, right? They may be good for conversations and so forth. There may be some value in having an understanding, but you can't eat the menu and be satisfied, right? You got to have the food, right? And so that's the thing, and that's where meditation comes in. Meditation is where you go to work on dealing directly with these mental states and emotional states and patterns, and sitting with them and letting them run down and run out, right? And as that happens, then you can come into the place where the concepts are no longer necessary because you're having the experience. That's why your life is ultimately your life is the practice, right? Because why? Because you're learning how to pay attention to your life in such a way that you notice when you're being crazy, that you notice when you're in reaction, that you notice when you're in your head, that you notice when your conditioning is determining what you're doing and saying and so forth, rather than what you know to be true. So and you have to be diligent and patient with this process. But I, more than ever these days, I find that meditation is absolutely necessary. Otherwise you can be a well-versed asshole. Right? For most people, their attention is located from here out, right? And so you want to get your attention to be located back here. So there's nothing in front of it. There's nothing behind it. Everything is in front of it. So for most people, their experience is that they're in the world and they're paying attention to the world, right? So through meditation and through learning these things, you bring your position, your view back behind your inner world. Now you're looking at your thoughts, your feelings, and your physical sensations. You're looking at the inner world as outer as much as the outer world is. That's what you want to do. You want to get back that far. Right? So it's a reorientation, right? It's a different thing because now you're being awareness instead of part of the content of awareness. Where prior to these practices and teachings, you were being part of the content of awareness. Bob was content of awareness. Bob's body is content of awareness, right? So the shift is to be the awareness, not what's in it. At least that's one part of the process. Like, don't think of this as a class, think of it as training. You're being trained to meditate. You're training yourself to meditate. That's different than a class. You have to give up. One of the things you have to give up to really get to where you really are in life, right, is the idea that you have to be entertained or you have to agree with everything or you have to like what's going on. That's the problem, right? So one of the things that gets practiced in the traditional student-teacher relationship, right? One of the things that gets practiced is the teacher will intentionally, right, provoke the student, to put them into an emotional reaction, right? To see whether that reaction determines them. See whether that reaction has them turn on the teacher. See if that reaction has them run, right? It's like a test, right? Because one of the ways you know who you are is you don't run anymore. There's nothing to run from. You understand? One of the ways you know who you are is you stop running. You just be with it all. You're present to it. You just be with it all. And of course, if you're being with it all and you're not running and you're not resisting it, then guess what? It passes. It passes. And that doesn't mean that you will forever be free of anxiety or depression or reactions, but those things will lessen a lot. I mean, even the Dalai Lama gets pissed off. So if he gets pissed off, how realistic is it to expect that you'll never get angry again? But the way he relates to himself getting pissed off is he thinks it's funny. Do you know what I mean? That's a completely different way of relating to being pissed off. He just thinks that it's funny that that happens. And then the other thing that he does with anger, and you know, this is part of what it means to become masterful and be a master. This is what it means to be a master. A master uses emotional reactions. So in other words, if I get angry, right, on another way of looking at it, you have this idea, well, that's a problem, I shouldn't never get angry and so forth. No, but it's going to happen by itself. You don't have any choice about it. But if I get angry and I'm awake, right, I can choose to express the anger because it will allow me to have an impact on somebody that I'm trying to get to hear me. Do you understand? So you can consciously use anger, and you can be present in such a way where you can see whether to be angry right now in the situation has a function and it's useful and it serves a purpose, or whether it's just, you know, dumping negative emotions or just acting out, right? That's part of what it means to be awake and be a master, is to see things for what they are, see what's really going on, and then be able to respond to it in a way that's skillful. And one of the ways to respond that's skillful when you're dealing with other people is sometimes you use anger to know when it's appropriate, when the use of the anger will make a difference. When you're practicing meditation, oh, it's good that you have the right posture, it's good that you're following your breath and all that jazz, right? But if while all that's happening, right, you're still not allowing everything to be the way it is, then you're not meditating. That's the essence of it. That's the essence of it, is to allow everything to be the way it is. If you were allowing everything to be the way it is, would life continue to be difficult? How could it be? You know what I mean? How could it be? You know, if you go down to the ocean and you stand in the surf, and you're going to stand there and resist the waves, and you're going to stand there and prove that the wave shouldn't be hitting me like this, right? There's that way of being, or you can stand there and let go of that point of view and let the waves wash over you, or surf the waves. Do you understand? The waves are life. When I say waves, I'm talking about the way life is, right? So part of the thing is, see, one of the things Rupert says is that you are life. You are life, right? And so if you are life, then the way life goes is the way you're going, right? And if you're moving at in the same way, in the same rate that something's moving, right? Is there going to be a problem?